Ladies and gentlemen, he's back by popular demand. People were asking, will you bring Chris Werstein back on? He says he's just like Frankenstein, so Werstein, but he's better looking. So the situation, here it is. The man, literally, is the walking encyclopedia of St. Louis soccer and baseball on the north side in the bi-state area. Chris Werstein, ladies and gentlemen. Did I chop it up, baby? Am I okay?
You're good.
All right. So, and if you were in the first episode, Chris was a part of a summer where they would help out. UMSL would help, University of Missouri at St. Louis would help out the underserved. And we were in with Father Walsh. And so he says, these kids are pretty underserved. And I mean to tell you, we took every morning, took a bus ride out to UMSL, got a lunch, played soccer, swam and got a lunch and came back, man. And everybody was exhausted. There was nobody, playing around on the bus coming home, man. We were exhausted. And we just talk about it, and it really helped out. It really helped out. No telling what kind of mischief we would have gotten involved in. So hats off to you, Chris, and you really know your business, and I really appreciate it. Now, we're friends, but I should wish it off the air to ask you, but will you become the official Wales certified historian?
Yeah, that's not a problem. I'm just fortunate that trust me, there were many guys that came before me that have a knowledge of St. Louis soccer.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. But they don't want to bum with the whale. You don't mind bumming with the whale. I'll take you down to that hamburger joint on Limburg.
No, that's no problem.
All right, then. Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So you heard it here. Chris Werstein is the official historian for Wales Certified. Chris, but you're not here just as a pretty face. You're here to celebrate and get in deep about the start of, at that time it was Riverman, but University of Missouri, St. Louis. You're at the start of it. You were the national champion in D2. And you have all the history. And your friend, they called him Don Dallas officially, but all his friends called him Big D. And so that's your intro. That's all you get, man. And so if you have at it, and so everybody's a full disclosure. Chris talks more than I do. That I finally met somebody who would talk more than I do, and it's Chris. Way to go, bro.
Okay, yeah, right. No, I'd say I kind of had a history with Don Dallas prior to him getting the job at UMSL. So I graduated from Bowman High School in '61, June of '61, and I went to Harris Junior College. That's back before they had a junior college district, before they had Flo Valley, Forest Park, and Merrimack. They had a junior college on Union Boulevard,
Wow.
right across from Soldan High School.
Wow.
It was a combination teachers college and a junior college. And it just so happened that Don Dallas, as I recall, he was a senior when I was just enrolling as a freshman in '61, September of '61. So later on, Don taught in the city schools. If you graduated from Harris, that was the teachers' college for the St. Louis public schools back in that time.
I'll be.
All right, and so, and Don grew up down in South St. Louis. He was in St. Mary and Joe Parish, down off Michigan and Holly Hills,
Yeah.
right near Cronolette Park.
Yeah, right.
And so Don was, he was quite an athlete as a young guy. And I don't know exactly. He went to Bischofsburg, and he was a soccer player and a baseball player. And he played. He was good enough at baseball. He signed a major league contract, and he played in the Yankee farm system in Quincy, Illinois.
I'll be.
And he also then later on he got the coaching position at Harris Teachers College. He was coaching the baseball team and the soccer team. Well, I say that I'm embarrassed to say I started in '61. I didn't graduate from Harris Teachers College until 1968. And that was in June. So I was in on the 7-year plan. So I was in and out of school and, trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. So, but eventually I played for Don. Don was the baseball and the soccer coach, and I was playing baseball and soccer at Harris Teachers College. And so that's where I got, introduced to him. He coached there, I want to say, in 1966 and 67. And then he took the job at UMSL in 1968. And I was asked to coach at Harris in 1968. But I was in the National Guard, so I couldn't. So I had a good friend of mine that I had played with, Jim McCann, and Jim McCann and I were like co-coaches. So we coached Harris in '68.
Wow.
So I actually played for Don Dallas, and then I coached against him in '68.
Man.
And we played a soccer game, and it was nothing. So that was I say not too bad.
No, not at all.
So, but anyway, shortly thereafter, he asked me if I would be willing to sign on as an assistant coach out at UMSL. So I did in 1969. So I was at UMSL from '69 until probably the spring of '75.
Wow.
I didn't get into the fall season of '75. I was teaching in the city, and the city system was kind of like not in good shape. So some of the fellas told me that you probably need to start looking around because you're going to get vested and then you won't be able to leave.
Wow.
So at that time, I left UMSL and I signed on with the Melville School District. So I was the boys' coach at Melville in the fall of '75. But up until that time, '69 to '75, or the early part of '75, I coached at UMSL.
Wow.
So I was kind of, Don's first season was '68, and then I came on board in '69. So UMSL at that time, I want to say Don was there in '68 and '69. They were in the NAIA, and that's prior to going into NCAA, a Division II.
Okay.
So, but there were a lot of young people, fellas playing soccer, and so St. Louis had a plethora of people to choose from, and they were all pretty decent soccer players.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Hall of
but
Famers.
anyway, so UMSL started off pretty slow. They played like maybe 7-8 games a season. And then things started to warm up around 1972. And you have to understand that Harry Keogh was coaching Florissant Valley Community College to a couple of national championships. And then when he left to go to St. Louis University, he turned it over to Pete Sorber. Well, I think Pete won like 10 national junior championships. So and we were fortunate to get some of those ball players from Flo Valley over to UMSL, as well as some of the top players from the southern part of the city. So things really were going good. So, there's an old saying about coaches, good players, good coach. So that helps. So, but anyway, yeah, in 1972, we played St. Louis U at UMSL, and we beat them 1-0.
Wow.
So that really kind of set things going, that we knew we had the makings of a good team. But like I said, we had just gotten Frank Kaczynski, Mike Carafa, Tim Smith, all bona fide players from Florissant Valley, these guys were winners. All right.
Yeah.
And so that made a big difference, so probably the magic year was 1973. That's when we won the Division II national championship, when things really came together for us. But we started off that season playing St. Louis U at Florissant Valley. And Florissant Valley had two really outstanding fields. They had a lower field and an upper field. The upper field, I think, had a track around it. And that's where we played. And so we played the very first game of the 1973 season. We played St. Louis U. Well, after about first 15 minutes of the game, we're down 2-0. Well, all of a sudden, we got going, And at halftime, it was 2-2. Tim
Holy
Smith had
cow.
scored 2 goals, and so now the score was 2-2. All right. So into late in the second half, SLU scored. They're winning 3-2. Well, Tim Smith scores again, ties the game up.
Whoa.
So Tim Smith scored a hat trick that day.
Yeah.
So the final score was 3-3. That was a shot in the arm. That meant that we could compete at a very high level.
Oh man! And
so the idea, as it turned out in '73, we went undefeated, but we did have 3 ties. And I'd say in all my time at UMSL, probably the one team we had the toughest time with that I can recall was, let's see, SIU Eversville. We could never beat them, but we tied them in '73, 0-0. And as far as we were concerned, we had never beaten them up to that point. So that was like a moral victory, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But you have to understand that they had a top team, and Quincy University had a really good soccer team as well. So there were a lot of teams that were very competitive. So.
Oh yeah.
But and then we wound up playing Eastern Illinois. Well, that was a new experience for me, but I didn't really anticipate they would be as good as they were. Well, they had a lot of players from Canada.
Is that where they were from?
And they were, trust me, it was a challenge to compete against them.
Yeah.
Now, we had Western Illinois' number, so even though we did not always beat them, I'd say our record is very outstanding. So, but and then on the let's say western part of the state was Rockhurst College, and they had a really dynamite soccer team.
Yeah.
So that was a very big challenge for us. But for us to go undefeated in 1973, that was really something.
Oh man, that's the first I ever heard of it.
But so probably getting to the Final Four was a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
But then we had to play Delphi, which is from New York State. They're just outside of New York City. And they were loaded with top-notch ball players.
Yeah.
Who were, even though they were probably citizens, they were of foreign extraction, and they were very, very accomplished.
Yeah.
And I say that we were very fortunate that we beat them 1-0, and then wound up playing for the national championships. The national championship against Cal State Fullerton from California.
Is that who?
So, but yeah, I'd say. But we were fortunate. We had some outstanding players. We had, I say, we had a kid, Kevin Missy from St. Mary's. He was the three-time All-American. Tim Smith was All-American. Frank Kaczynski was our goalkeeper. Okay. I say that the team was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2015. And I always tell the folks, I think I said back then that I could remember Harry Keogh telling me that in order to win a championship in soccer, you had to have 8 good players, and he said one of them had to be the goalkeeper. And so Frank Kaczynski was an outstanding goalkeeper, and he was an All-American in baseball and soccer at UMSL during the 2 years that he was there. But he had played on a national junior championship team at Florissant Valley. So Frank knew his way around soccer.
Yeah.
So, and he was an outstanding first baseman. So, but we had the makings of a pretty good team. I say that when I gave the small spiel that evening in 2015, I said in soccer parlance, players fall into one of 2 categories. They're either piano players or they're piano movers. But I said we had some of each. But when it came time to make music, we were a symphony of one. So these guys really, I mean, it's kind of like overkill to say that you got to have team chemistry, but that was so true of these guys.
Wow.
Okay, and that's kind of like I say that there was a saying that I saw painted on the walls of an athletic locker room, and it said, to be a member of a team will allow you to become better than you could be ever by yourself.
Wow.
So that's what team is all about. Together, everyone achieves more.
There you
so,
go.
Yeah, no, we so I'd say I can't say enough about those guys. I'd say that I have to give a shout out to some of the guys because during that tournament, during the Final Four, Tim Smith got hurt in the first half against Adelphi. So he was our glue man. He kept everything together, and he was the leading scorer at that time, and he had 13 goals. And so, he was counted on to score. But we lost him early on in that match. But the guys persevered, and I'd say, and then we had a kid named Ken Hudson. He had gotten hurt, so guys had to step up from the bench. So that made a big difference. But we had a couple of guys in the backfield. Al Rudruff, I think he's the brother. He's the older brother of Bruce Rudruff.
Oh, yeah.
Who was a really, really good soccer player. And then we had a kid, Steve Stockman.
Wow.
And both of them played center backs. And so I'd say, that as good as Frank was, we really had some outstanding defenders.
Yeah.
And Mike Carafa and Jim Kramer stepped in and did a really big job. But we also had Kevin Missy in the midfield, along with Mark LeGrand. And that was a unique combination because Kevin was a really gifted soccer player, but he was not the most he was always up on the front line somewhere and a support of the forwards. So trust me, Mark LeGrand had to do yeoman's work to make sure that he picked up for Kevin's lack of defensive responsibilities or whatever, So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that was that kind of put UMSL on the map there, and I'd say that they, from then on, they did quite well.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate just to get into the final. Right, Delphi was that good. That is a neat thing about the game of soccer. The best team doesn't always win. Delphi was an extremely good team, but we were on our game. And the kid who scored a goal, Jim McKenna, he swears he shot, and we all swear he was trying to cross the ball. But he scored probably halfway through the second half, and you could tell the guys really dug in. And what was so tough was we were playing on an artificial surface, and we had not played on an artificial surface before.
Oh, my God.
And so, it changes the whole thing around. The ball travels much faster, bounces higher. It's altogether different. Even though it's the same for both teams, if you've never played on artificial surface before, but that's where we played the semifinal and final. But I'd say once we got past Delphi, then Cal State had their hands full because the guys came out and we wound up beating them 3-0.
Wow. Man.
So that was a big deal, I'd say. But kind of getting back to what you had talked about when you guys came for that summer camp, that was one of our top players that helped me put on that camp for the kids. It was John Garland.
Yeah.
And John Garland was an outstanding soccer player. Okay, so he was in the same league with Kevin Missy, and he was extremely a very good player. John did not play in '73, but he had left his mark up in UMSL, that's for sure.
Now, at that time, was there anything where those guys went to Florissant Valley and then they went into the service for 18 months and then came back out to go to UMSL? Was that anything like that?
Well, I'd say that's probably one of the things that made Frank Kaczynski I think Frank was in the service, and he was older than the guys on the team. So the guys looked up to him because he had been around, so to speak. All right.
Yeah.
He'd been around the block a few times. So, and he was a great guy, but he was an outstanding individual as a player and as a person.
Yeah.
So I'd say a majority of the guys, kind of like I said, chemistry-wise, they really got along together, and that was the key.
Well, if I help me to, if you agree or another perception, another look at it, another set of eyes, is that unless you're top notch, going straight to a 4-year institution, as far as Wales goes, no, man, you'd be better off going to a very highly competitive junior college to get seasoned and then jump in.
Well, I'd say, there's all different kinds of ways to look at something,
Yeah,
but,
right.
but at the time, you have to understand guys wanted to win. So this fellow was was All-American for 3 years at UMSL, Kevin Missy. Kevin left UMSL after his freshman year and went to Merrimack Community College. But he wound up winning a national championship with Pat McBride.
Wow.
Okay. John Garland did almost the same thing. He had at that time, Florissant Valley had a lock on the junior college championships. I mean, they were winning them left and right. And they had outstanding coaching and they had outstanding players. So, I'd say at that time, junior college was a big help, And so it kind of all depends. Some players are, they can step in right now and they can play, so they don't need to go to a junior college. But then again, everybody's different. Some guys need to have that seasoning or kind of need to play. I'd say college athletics nowadays is a totally different animal than I experienced.
Well, pray tell. What do you mean?
Well, the idea is there's money now involved. Not only back when I was involved, you got a scholarship, okay, and maybe a summer job, but now these guys are making 6 figures just to be on the team. So whether it's basketball or football or whatever, and then guys can hop around from one school to the next depending upon what, when it comes to NIL money. If somebody outbids somebody else, these guys, they have no qualms about changing. They're not going to change just for the money, but some do, some don't, So it's a different ball game,
Right.
I'd say that there's a lot of coaches that have opted out. I mean, big time coaches. They said they don't, coaching is tough enough without having to manage players and money.
Right.
So it's almost gotten. I mean, there's some guys that are making in college. Making as much as some guys make in the pros.
Yeah.
So it's just a totally different ball game,
Okay.
So
How about when you played? You played and you were with the St. Louis Stars. And kudos.
that was I'd say there were a lot of guys that played for the Stars that were really bona fide ball players. And then there were guys like myself. I was, when it comes to pro standards, probably average at best.
All right.
So it all depends, if you were in the right place at the right time, and
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
How did the refereeing go, Chris, when you were a lineman?
Yeah, that was a real experience for me, to go from being a player to being a referee. I really enjoyed working high school games, but things were changing fast, and being a linesman was tough, but being the man in the middle was even tougher.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of responsibility, but I'd say during my time as a player and as an official and even as a coach, I came across some outstanding individuals, players, coaches, referees. There are always some that stand out,
So how about the recruiting? Did you and Don Dallas have an agreement or?
Well, I tell you what. Actually, probably. Well, I'd say that we had a pipeline. Don Dallas had a pipeline from St. Mary's High School, and St. Mary's always had outstanding athletes. And but Don was. I have to give credit to Don. I can't take any credit for recruiting players. Okay,
Right.
so I was the guy that trained the players. Of course, I don't want to say trained, coached or whatever, but Don was the major recruiter.
Right.
And having played soccer himself, he had a feel for finding guys that were outstanding players. And you have to understand, he was very fortunate in that he didn't have to go very far to watch a good game and see good players.
Right.
Because there were outstanding high school games and outstanding junior college games going on constantly, and he was able to tap into that. And the bottom line is kind of like I said, if you got good players, you're probably going to have a good team.
Okay, then. All right.
I mean,
yeah.
That's not always the case,
Well, yeah, you're
but
right.
But what I'm saying is that, you got to have guys that are
right,
that understand the game, that have the skills necessary. It's and then also you got to have guys.
Well, Chris must have hit the wrong button. Yeah, all right then. He was getting into some riffraff and a baba boom, baba bang. We'll see what he does. We'll see if we surprise him. No, ain't nothing there. No, nothing there. Well, I don't know what could have happened to old Chris. Yeah, he's dropping the ball. We're gonna tick-tock, tick. So you know that I know that you know that we have some kind of, like if you got a soccer ball, it isn't a select ball, you got problems. You need to get a select soccer ball. That's how you maintain high standards to your play, is by having the ball. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. And go buy Gus's pretzels, for God's sakes. Get yourself some Gus's pretzels, and try out those the bratwurst and the zazitza wrapped in a pretzel. And then you go out in on Whiteown by Hanley. Pino's Southern Italian soul food. I mean to tell you there, baby. That's the place. Yeah, everything's dropped. He might be going back, taking out the Morse code or something. He's got a pigeon. It's en route. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know that. UMSL, unbelievable. University of Missouri at St. Louis. Just an outstanding institution, and they really took local to the national championship. So the best to them, and they have we're involved, Wales certified, is for the girls, the women's soccer. We're really trying. So that's them. And then, we got a load. So we got this 41 minutes in, 42 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, remember, UMSL, University of Missouri at St. Louis. Check them out. Okay. See ya.